Robots Radio presents...
Hi there, and welcome to the Hidden Pixels podcast, a show highlighting those gaming stories you might have missed on your first playthrough. I'm your host, Sebastian Nazaro. On this episode, we're headed back to space. This time, we explore the lore of the Destiny universe, a place in the distant future where an entity known as the Traveler came to Earth and advanced humanity's technological capabilities beyond our imagination. In this future, a group of defenders of humanity has risen, the Guardians. These protectors come in one of three types: a hulking titan, a magical warlock, and a strategic hunter. They traverse the solar system, working against anything that may threaten humanity's existence. Today, we'll examine an event that took place soon after the Traveler arrived in the solar system, the Great Ahamkara Hunt. We'll also share some vignettes before and after the hunt story, showing how the Ahamkara are experienced in the game's present day. So gear up, Guardian, and let's dive in. They are waiting for Lavinia in the courtyard of the ruined tower, although they do not strike until she holds the guilty object in her hand. A titan in New Monarchy red pins her to the ground. A hunter with a gun barrel as wide as the moon cuffs her and calls her a looter. Rahul has a watch on this one, the titan remarks, consulting her black-tipped ghost. Says it's for her own protection. The hunter hisses and flinches back. She's got a bone! Get off her! Enough! This new voice is strange to Lavinia, but the power in it can only be Ikora Ray's. You will never touch a mortal human in anger again. That is not our purpose. Thunder booms. Something detonates nearby. Lavinia's ears pop. She gets the sense that, voluntarily or otherwise, the two New Monarchy Guardians have vanished. Lavinia tries to stand up, but vertigo and the cuffs pitch her sideways, and she lands hard on her hip. Master Ray, she gasps. I'm sorry, I should have filed a... Lavinia, Ikora's coiled fury has a tooth of fear in it. Open your left hand. There's a bone in her hand. A long chunk of jaw with one huge white protruding tooth. It's warm and comforting and solid. She clutches it protectively, the key, the egg tooth that will crack open the mystery of the Nine and put her back in her master's good graces and save her from the probation Rahul dropped on her when he hauled her out of the archives. With an effort of will that makes her shout out loud, she opens her fists and drops the Ahamkara bone. Ikora Ray makes it fly away. You weren't after that bone. It was after you. Did you make a wish, Lavinia? Did you ask to know about the Nine? She tries to explain that she didn't, that she only wanted to track the bone back to its source, Venus hopefully, and to learn why the Nine needed the Ahamkara. Why do you think the Nine needed the Ahamkara? Ikora asks, dangerously. To make wishes, Lavinia pants. Xur didn't appear in the tower until the end of the Great Ahamkara Hunt. Whatever they used to get from the Ahamkara... She leaves it unsaid. Maybe the Nine are now getting it from the Guardians. Ikora rubbed her brow. I can't stop you, but if you keep looking, I can't protect you from the consequences. Help me, Lavinia begs. There's something here, something that connects everything, the trials and the Ahamkara and the Guardians and the Nine. There are things the consensus knows about Gaul's attacks, things they haven't told us. Ikora Ray puts up one finger. Lavinia shuts up. Choose. Are you going to go back to school and let me pretend that you were never here? Or do I have to report you for theft of an Ahamkara bone? Lavinia takes a deep breath. I'm sorry, she says. I have to keep going. I have to try my luck. The tribunal's verdict is unanimous. Lavinia Garcia Umra Tawil was trespassed against her oath to guard the common welfare of humanity. She will never set foot in the city again. As we know, when the traveler arrived in our solar system centuries ago, it changed everything. All that we knew and what we didn't know was revealed to us. It changed us. It allowed us to evolve into something more than our greatest selves. But it also changed everything else. Its waves reverberated throughout the solar system like wake following a motoring ship. And from this wake was born the Ahamkara, giant dragons on Venus imbued with stunning, important power. Hulking creatures who could grant humanity's wishes upon command. And yet, they were tricksters, deceiving any into assuming that there was no price to be paid for these boons. But the Ahamkara always had a price, and that is why they must be eradicated. It was not an easy decision for those living in the last city. This final stronghold of mankind was powered through the bargains made with the Ahamkara. The knowledge gleaned was beyond impressive, and the Ahamkara had answers to questions no one had known to ask. But even though the dangers were known, guardians still sought out these beings. No edict or forbearance would prevent them from seeking the Ahamkara out, driven by hope or vengeance or despair. Their siren call had to be silenced. The Ahamkara had to be eliminated. There must be a great hunt. The Vanguard knew this. They were the last defenses of the last city, the de facto leaders of the Guardians, and they were the ones who could coordinate and execute such a hunt. It was their duty to analyze potential threats to humanity and take action if necessary. That was all they were doing now, exterminating the threat. Eris Morn knew this as she crafted the message. If the Guardians were going to hunt Ahamkara, they would need all the help they can get. And the closest possible ally was Mara in the Dreaming City. She was cunning and dangerous, but her people were also at risk, and she needed to know. Eris continued to write. We thought we were gods who had found an opportunity for more power. A silly notion to the likes of you and me, but the average Guardian had not been threatened like this. The Titans are beside themselves. We will take extreme measures. We must. These creatures have such means. They will flee, far and wide, perhaps all the way to you, Mara. I implore you, if you hold your people as dearly as you say you do, you will end them on sight. Eris took a deep breath before sending the message, hoping to get a positive response, but not expecting anything at all. She started the climb to the tower, hoping to check with the Vanguard on what plans they have already made. The response from Mara was nearly immediate and overwhelmingly positive. The Dreaming City would help in any way possible to destroy the Ahamkara. Eris was relieved at the aid, but was confused when all that arrived was a lone Guardian, a Titan named Jokser. On his back was a large box filled with specialized weaponry. The Queen suggests we outfit ourselves with these. Much more effective. The firearms were tested and retested, but nothing seemed to be wrong with them. In fact, they worked better than any other loadout available. Each Guardian who was taking part in the hunt grabbed one and continued to prepare for the coming raid. Venus, the Great Hunt. The Ahamkara refused to die. For a day, Wei Ning had been fighting it to a standstill with her bare hands, cratering it repeatedly into the ground. Eris had seen a wish dragon drive Titans mad by refusing to fall to brute strength. But Eris was pretty sure Wei Ning was already insane. Confession time, the Titan said as she hammered punches into the Ahamkara's tentacled face. I've been wishing this fight could go on forever. Eris balked. Please stop, you psychopath. We have 6 others to handle. No, we want this. Trust me, Wei Ning said. An hour later, 6 shapes emerged from the Venusian foliage. Ahamkara. Their compatriot, whom Wei Ning continued to pound into the ground, was pulsating, growing stronger, feeding. The others had come to feed at the same table. Eris pulled her arc blade from the air and blinked. When the hunter and the titan finished their hunt, Eris thought she heard Wei Ning whisper, "Did you say something? I was about to ask you." Huh. The 2 women looked at the still Ahamkara corpses strewn across the ground. The whispering continued, but not from the air around them. Rather, the dragon corpses themselves were whispering within the guardians' minds, still attempting to call them to their alluring deals. As the months passed, this squadron of guardians made great strides in their goals. Eris and Wei Ning, Nathan and Zavala, Shax and Ikora, 6 guardians to eradicate the treacherous dragons. Brood after brood of Ahamkara were pursued, cornered, and exterminated. The guardians were systematic in their approach, going after each Ahamkara with a murderous vengeance, knowing that they must be destroyed in order to break the bonds of the bargains. And all the while, the whispers followed them. Venus, a year into the Great Hunt. Eris and Zavala watched as Shax sat with the dying Ahamkara, a hand on its snout. "Is he gloating?" she asked. "I think he is too pragmatic to gloat," Zavala said. "Mourning, then?" "Perhaps." The Ahamkara twitched. Its eyes rolled up into its head. The biochemical glow just beneath its skin grew harsh. Zavala and Eris raised their hands against the increasing glare. Then the corpse exploded. Dirt showered the guardians like dusty rain on a clear day. Shax sat silently in the resulting crater, covered in a sheen of green fire. Zavala and Eris opened their mouths to speak, but Shax interrupted them. "Shh," he said, as the flame quietly roared. They could all hear a disembodied whisper, but they were used to that by now. Nathan strode over, staring intensely at the fire. "It's getting louder. They keep getting louder." "It's nothing to be upset about. There's nothing we can do about it." Wei Ning seemed to have lost all hope of ever escaping the whispering remains over the last few weeks. Nathan and Shax gave each other a look as Zavala went over to Wei Ning. "Hang in there, Titan. We have some ways to go still." She placed a hand on the bulking shoulder, but Wei Ning shrugged it off. "Don't worry about me. Just keep pointing and I'll keep punching." Eris and Ikora stood over a graveyard of whispering bones. An hour ago, this was a vibrant army of Ahamkara. "What did they offer you?" said Eris. Her stare reached for a mile in front of them. So did the grave of bones. "The same as you, I'm sure." Ikora stood buoyed by a gentle flow of light above the whispering bones. It was easier to concentrate up here. "Everything they say is true," said Eris. Ikora looked down at her sharply. "Sentiment like that leads to morbid places," she cautioned. "Yes," came the reply. "If you guide your light north, I'll take the south. This will be quick." "I think they showed me my life before my ghost." "Eris, focus." "Yes." Together the guardians summoned a storm of light that consumed the bones around them. They ignored the whispers, but the voices grew louder, harsher as the maelstrom progressed. Soon they couldn't tell the difference between the whispers and the storm. The hunt lasted 2 efficient years. The Guardian team learned to destroy the dragon's remains, but the whispers persisted. No matter how hard the team pushed, the Ahamkara would still tempt them with their greatest wishes, dreams which they could never achieve on their own. Dreams which they could never achieve without the Ahamkara. That Guardian team hunted every last one of the great dragons on Venus. They destroyed them all, an entire army of Ahamkara. And yet even then, they knew that the whispers would still be too great. that guardians would still be called to Venus to hunt for the source of the sounds, in hope that they could better understand their desires. At least now, all they would find would be bones and dust, for the Ahamkara are dead, and they are gone forever. I am Riven, the last of the Ahamkara. My work on the Dreaming City is complete. I have done everything Queen Mara asked of me. But this is a bargain. I did so much more than that. The Queen and her ilk will not understand for some time, though I think the Queen can see the signs. What I have carved into the small corners, in the Wall of Wishes itself. This will be a beautiful city, but not a safe city. Mara is gloating, having hid me away from the hunt, but she does not know her own weakness. Her hubris will be her end. I am Riven, the last of the Ahamkara. Why did I send her on the trail? You try and you try and you try to explain, but no one ever understands. No one who's not a warlock, who hasn't spent a dozen years scouring the ruins for one string of symbols, one clean code, one black talon. Titans just make a huffing noise if they've stayed awake. Hunters clean their nails with their knives and look at you like you've grown a third eye. But when you've spent your life searching through arcana for ancient power, you have the urge to reach out and educate others, especially if you've had one too many. Nah, she's not my type at all. We've played dice, cards, war games, the usual stuff. I'd never tried to show off before. I don't know what came over me. I had a broken vertebrae in my pocket that I'd borrowed from. Yes, borrowed. I was going to put it back. What do you think you are, my conscience? It was a fossil. That means mineral replacement. A rock, basically. They could survive a few hours in my pocket. Do shut up. The Cryptarchs weren't going to miss it. Everyone knows that Ahamkaras were hunted to extinction. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Think of how mysterious this system is, I said. How much life sprang up when the Traveler came, like the Ahamkara. Do you know the legends? That dragon that made promises? And I pulled the fossil out with a flourish. And she pulled out a knife and started to pick the dirt from her nails. That set me off. You could have never brought down one of these, I said. Ever. Not the greatest hunter, not the brawniest titan. Her eyes narrowed. She said, "Oh, is that so?" And I saw right then that she wasn't going to pass on the challenge. Great. I've murdered a guardian, I thought. She's going to die, and it will be my fault. And I looked at the piece of spine in my hand and I wondered, why did I say that? What moved me to such pride? She immediately got up from the table and strode out, leaving me to contemplate my foolishness and provocations, wondering if I'd ever see her again. Some time and distance later, the same Titan looked over the Ahamkara scale in her hand. She dusted it off, examining it and shaking off the faint whisper in her ears as adrenaline. With a wide, smug grin, she congratulated herself. And that warlock thought I couldn't do it. Ha! When I first started to research Destiny for this story, I found its lore dense, confusing, and very hard to comprehend. The differences among the Fallen, the Hive, and the Vex, and all of the others were hard to parse through due to my small amount of time playing the game. But getting my hands on the actual timeline allowed me to better understand where each group falls into place. And it was in this search of the timeline that led me to the Ahamkara. Kind of like space dragon, trickster genies, these creatures have fascinated me. While Riven, the last of the Ahamkara, has a huge role in the Last Wish raid, it was the gear descriptions from that raid that drew me in. Tales of a great Ahamkara hunt, sanctioned by the Vanguard and carried out by Guardians, is a great piece of lore buried in a collection of menus found only in this add-on raid. Piecing them together took some time, but I think it makes a compelling and bittersweet story in the end, especially when we as the player know that the Whispers and Riven still both exist even after the hunt. From now on, for each story, I'm going to go a little more in depth as to where the source material lore can be found in the games. The majority of the lore used in today's story was located in the item descriptions for the Great Hunt Armor set from the Destiny 2 Forsaken expansion. Piecing them together gives you two parts of the story. The first of the Great Hunt, and then second of Riven's upbringing. While we focused almost exclusively on the first part today, we might have to revisit to get Riven's tale in a later episode. The interplay between her and Mara and the Taken King gets pretty insane, and there's a lot of fun surprises and storytelling buried in there. You may have noticed that one of the names in today's story seemed a little out of place, and that's because it was. Nathan was our first level 3 tiered patron on our Patreon, a tested traveler, and one of the perks that he gets is a character named after him. In our version of this tale, Nathan will always be a guardian hunting Ahamkara with Eris and Ikora. It's our fun way of showing some gratitude for Nathan's support. And if you want to support the show as well, you can on our Patreon page at patreon.com/hiddenpixelspodcast. There are a bunch of different tiers depending on your comfort level, and you too could have your name in one of our stories, or help come up with the story idea itself, or even voice your own character. Check out the link in the show notes to see all of the benefits of being an official show patron. We also have a Discord server where we're talking about each weekly story and the games that they're from. Right now we're talking about the benefits of Magikarp in Pokemon, but we might just as easily pivot to the locked raids in Destiny, or all of the new content in the Division 2, or E3 predictions. So there's a little something for everyone. The link to the page is also in the show notes, and I hope you'll all drop in to say hi. And speaking of communities, if you want more amazing podcast content, head over to robotsradio.net, where you'll find all of our other network shows. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, or just gaming in general, there's something here for every type of gamer. I just finished listening to Tom's latest Fallout Lorecast, going over the events of the first Fallout game. Tom breaks down each part of it, from the factions to the locations, plot details, so you get a full picture of the roots of this series. And now next up for me is the latest Written in Uncertainty by Aramithius, where he goes into the World Skin and the Red Guard creation myth from the Elder Scrolls. It's something I've never looked much into, so I can't wait to learn about it. Again, check out these shows and more at robotsradio.net. You won't be disappointed. Okay, what's the next episode for us at Hidden Pixels? I think we're going to head over to The Witcher and knock out one of the thousands of side quests from that series. We'll have it prepped and ready in 2 weeks, so mull over the whole Triss versus Yennefer debate until then. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. This episode of the Hidden Pixels podcast was written, recorded, and produced by me, Sebastian Azaro. All episode music information can be found in the show notes or on our website, hiddenpixelspodcast.com. If you like what you heard, please consider showing your support on our Patreon page at patreon.com/hiddenpixelspodcast. Every bit helps to continue to share these hidden stories. And if you like what you heard, or even if you didn't, please rate and review the show on any major podcast streaming platform. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Hidden Pixels Podcast, or on our Discord channel where we're continuing the stories after the story. Links to all are in our show notes as well. And as always, thanks for listening.
Have you ever wondered how deep the Elder Scrolls lore rabbit hole goes? Have you got a grasp of the basics and want to find out more about the universe? Written in Uncertainty is here to help you. We'll be mixing in philosophy, theology, and whatever other theory is useful with Elder Scrolls texts to untangle some of the biggest questions in the series, like what are dragon breaks, how does Chim work, where did the Dwemer go, and more. Check us out at writteninuncertainty.com or find Written in Uncertainty on any podcatcher. Thanks for listening, and catch you later in the Grey Maybe of Tamriel.